morning, everybody. Kevin J Johnston here. This is the Real Estate and Money Show, which is every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Episode 34, Exit Tax and Snitch Lines. We need to talk about what's going on with the Canada Revenue Agency because we know that some of what the Canada Revenue Agency is doing to everybody in Canada is also now being done to Americans due to the IRS. And these are just not good things. I need to make an announcement, however, tonight. I'm sure some of you have heard the names Robert Menard and what's the other guy? A Warrior Calls, Christopher James. Well, these two gentlemen profess to be experts in the free man on the land movement. Now, in principle, I would have to say that I kind of agree with it. I don't like the idea of being subject to laws that I never agreed to be governed by. And I certainly don't want to be governed by the left-wing nuts that run the courts and run the government in Canada. However, if I stand like this and I say something like, I'm not going to pay tax because tax is illegal to charge. Well, maybe it is. But do you think that professing that to nobody is going to win that case? You haven't even presented a case at this particular point. The reason I bring this up is I do a lot of work with veterans and I do a lot of work with the elderly, people that just can't afford to get their taxes done. However, when people take the advice from Christopher James and Robert Menard, especially to do with taxes and law, what happens? They lose all of the time. I just had a conversation with a gentleman this evening. I'm not going to give you his name. And yes, I had to record it because I had a feeling it was going to get out of hand, and it did. But the individual had contacted me telling me that he says taxes are illegal and that no human being in Canada has to do a tax return. Well, I did tell him that a tax return is not going to get you into prison if you don't do one, but it's in your best interest just to do one after you speak to a professional like me, because that way, when the government, the losers who work for the Canadian government, have their silly little pieces of paper, they close your file and they leave you alone. You know, sometimes we all just have to kind of suck it up a little bit. Like, don't be so pride-filled in matters in which you have absolutely no control and you have no army to fight. Sometimes you just got to do it. I despise the Canada Revenue Agency in absolutely every way, but the Canada Revenue Agency makes it very easy to defeat them because it doesn't matter what I've got a problem with, there's a form for that. And if I fill it out and submit it and then make a phone call to say, I submitted your form, well, guess what happens? They say, oh, well, now the onus is on us to do whatever you're telling us to do in that form. It's that simple. If you want to get the CRA off your back, then you come to me and I'll fill out an objection to your taxes, which will get you an appeal date anywhere between 6 months and a year and a half down the road. And then we're going to demand disclosure. They're not going to give it to us, and we're going to win based on no disclosure. We're playing in their sandbox. We are, unless you're going to go to the CRA office fully armed with an army of 1,000 men, fully armed, and take them down, and then obviously put up with getting shot at by the cops who invariably are going to show up, and so on. Unless you're going to do that, which you're not, you know, there is no way for you to make a profession that taxes are illegal and I'm not going to do them. The individual in question ended up getting assessed for $60,000 in tax debt, and they are now taking 1/3 of his pension every single month, and he's not going to be able to survive in doing so. Here's the problem. He hires me and then tells me that because what we found, because he wouldn't tell me the truth, the numbers that we found matched up to what the CRA said that he owed. So we had to tell him, we need to take a different approach to this. And unfortunately, what the individual said is that because our numbers match the CRA's exactly, that we are his enemy as well. And then he wanted to go ahead and shout into the phone for about almost 10 minutes about the fact that taxes are completely illegal and he doesn't even have to tell me what his tax numbers are. Well, if you're hiring me to do your taxes for you, you do kind of have to share that with me. You're under no obligation to tell me anything. You can hire me and then say, I don't want to work with you anymore. That's okay. But if you want me to actually do your taxes and come up with different numbers than what the CRA has, then you got to tell me what your numbers are. And if you want to stand there and proudly profess that the CRA has no power over you and that you're a free man on the land and you drive a car without a driver's license and you just move into abandoned houses and you write little letters off to the city and so on, you're going to do prison time. They're going to lock you up for it. I agree that the driver's license is complete nonsense. But if I have one and I get pulled over, the conversation with the cop that I really don't want to have ends really quickly. And I can carry on. If I don't have one and I want to start reading out all the tripe that the free man on the land movement wants to throw at the police, which they do, I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to have to make bail. I'm going to have a court date at some point. And that ticket, which would have been just a ticket that I could have fought in court as a free man, a true free man, I have to now fight not only the traffic ticket, but the criminal charge that goes along with it, which of course I still disagree with, but why put ourselves through it? So when you hire me, Kevin J Johnston, to do your taxes for you, well, cooperate with me. I'm not your enemy. I'm your friend. I'm the one who's helping you. So I have to address them right now. To Christopher James and to Robert Menard of the Free Man on the Land movement and A Warrior Calls, or whatever you call your movements, you are destroying lives with the information that you're giving to people. You're absolutely ruining people's lives. The worst example that I can give is that a mentally ill man came to Christopher James and listened to all the nonsense about the fact that you just have to send a letter off to the banks saying that mortgages are illegal and I'm not going to pay them. And that's exactly what he did. And what did the bank do? They foreclosed on the property. And what did this guy do? Well, he, I guess, was embarrassed and he decided to abandon his wife and 4 children. And I had to negotiate with the bank to allow them to stay an extra 60 days so that they could get everything sold off that they had, everything packed up, and move from the east of Ontario all the way to the west, like an 8-hour distance that they had to go because the husband listened to Christopher James and all that free man garbage. If you are going to tell the bank that it's illegal for them to charge interest on a loan that you applied for, they're going to take your house. People who have slight mental deficiencies tend to gravitate towards Robert Menard and towards Christopher James. And you all want to believe in your fantasies of fantasies that there is some type of magical wand you can wave and never pay tax again. It's not how it works. And there's no magical wand you can wave and get a free house. And there's no magical fairy dust you can sprinkle and get rid of a mortgage in a day because you say so. That is just not real. That is not how it works at all. If you want to state that you disagree fundamentally with the CRA, then you're on your own. You're on your own if you're not going to cooperate with me. When you hire me, you do have to cooperate with me or I can't help you. You're going to have as much luck telling the planet that you find gravity offensive and that gravity has no right to pull you towards the center of the earth. And then you're going to test that by jumping off of a building. And should you survive the fall, who are you going to blame? The earth? The force of gravity? Come on, everyone. I need you to stay away from the free man on the land movement. I can absolutely obliterate your tax bill. And I mean obliterate it. But I have to use the law to do it. I have to work within the confines of what would be considered fraud law. Why? Because if I'm doing overtly fraudulent things and a nationwide police investigation opens up on me, then they're going to contact Interpol and I can't go to 13 different countries in the Caribbean Union. So I work within the confines of the law. We will find every write-off that you are legally allowed to have. We are going to find every expense that you're legally allowed to claim. And we're going to eliminate every single earning that we are legally allowed to do. And believe me, there are so many laws in your favor in Canada for taxes that whatever it is that I do is going to work the first time that we do it. I need you all to stay away from the free man on the land movement. There's so many of my clients have come to me. It's too late in some cases. I can't save their houses, but at least I can save them their tax dollars. But don't go to war with the CRA or the government by stating that I am a free man, I am a sovereign citizen, and your laws don't apply, and I'm not going to cooperate. They're going to turn right around and just take your stuff. It's illegal what they do, but they're still going to do it. So you are correct, IT74. There is no way to fix Canada currently. And the reason I do the income tax show, the money and tax show that I do now, is that I want you to understand that I have been following Canadian politics full time for 24 years. I've been studying tax law for 40 years. I have been a big mouth for the last 8 years. In Canada, I am the one who has discovered so many rotten things the Canadian government's done that they've actually sent the police out to beat the living hell out of me, which they've done. And I'm still talking, and I'm still smiling. I'm still doing it because I despise the current tax system, and I hate the way they bully people, but I decided to learn how to beat them. And that's what I do. I beat them. So something for all of you now to pay attention to in Canada, and that is the Canada Revenue Agency. If you have a farm, whether it's a large or small farm anywhere in the country, the Canada Revenue Agency is now, by mandate from Justin Trudeau and his puppet masters, to freeze the bank accounts of as many farmers in Canada as possible. So what they're doing currently is they are assessing farmers' taxes at incredibly low rates, not even high rates, but low rates. There are farmers who have had their bank accounts shut down, completely frozen, for less than $1,000 because the CRA is assessing a tax debt and not communicating properly with the farmer. This is going on all over the country. It's not just the province of Ontario. It's absolutely all over the country. The other thing that's going on in Canada currently, and I want all of you to pay close attention to this, is that farmers all over Canada are now being offered up to double the value of their farm. And in order for that to happen in Canada, the farmer has to slaughter all of their livestock, spread it around the fields, and then incinerate the fields along with the livestock. That is a fact. They are doing this in Canada currently to artificially increase the price of food. To it, I'm sure you've seen it. I am sure that you've seen that right now 4 chicken breasts in Toronto are almost $50, depending on which store you go to. I'm sure you've seen all of this. I know for a fact that in the province of Alberta, you've seen $10 bags of Doritos. I mean, you shouldn't be eating that stuff, but you've seen it. And it's being done deliberately to move wealth away from the middle class and give it to those who don't deserve it. So in Canada, if you're a homeowner, you've got options. Here is a big option for a lot of you. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, especially on this matter. No, Sariana, I said a package of 4 is $50 in Toronto. I've seen people send me photographs all the time. I'm buying 5.25 pound chickens here in Panama City for $4. That's what I'm doing. And it is remarkable that a guy my weight, who works out quite a bit, is spending less than $25 a week on groceries. It's incredible. So why create a food shortage, Charlie? Is because it's easy when people begin to panic and start selling off their properties cheap to buy up that land cheap. It's called a land grab. It is a transfer of wealth away from the middle class into 2 different groups. One is going to be the illegal immigrants coming into the country, and the other one's going to be the very, very wealthy, the ones who are doing all this nonsense. Right now, for example, in Illinois, foreigners, especially Venezuelans who are coming into the United States illegally, are getting between $3,000 and $5,000 US per month, plus free dental, and anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000 in food stamps. That's happening in Illinois right now. So the destruction of farms in Canada is happening. The moving of wealth in Canada is happening. And now these illegals in the United States are getting free money, just like they are in Canada. Now, you'll also notice what happened in the last little bit here. There's a lot of Indians, Sikhs, and Hindus that are now being deported from Canada. Why? Because Canada, and this is where this middle class war is really being shown to the world. The Canadian government's not even hiding it anymore. Students are coming into Canada. They're having all of their money taken from them in the bogus universities. University of Toronto, a joke. The former Ryerson, an absolute disgrace. Even Sheridan College, where I went, and I taught there too, is brutal. There is no education here. The international students come into Canada, which is a Ponzi scheme, not even a country anymore, spending all their money on this ridiculous education and being sent back. Why? Because they no longer have any resources. Canada has been run as an economic zone for the last decade, not a country. So Canada is not relying on investment to make money for the country. It's relying on bringing international students and international investors in, stripping them of everything they got, and then kicking them out. So if you're in India and you're planning on coming to Canada, I highly recommend you don't, because the Canadian government's going to take your money and kick you out with nothing to show for it. And here's the other part too. They're kicking Indian students out of Canada back to India. They don't even have money for plane tickets, and the Canadian government's not even flipping the bill for those plane tickets. So with all these problems and all the illegal immigration taking place in Canada, and the fact that the just like the United Kingdom, that's true too, just like the United Kingdom, just like the Democrat-run states in the US, there is an absolute war on the middle class. You cannot save Canada. It's done. The Canadian dream is over. What you need to do now, Canada, especially Canadians, is give up on the notion that the rules of the country are good for you. They're not. Give up on the notion that you can join forces with the protesters and save the nation. You can't. It is now time for Canadians to have individual civil liberty and leave. There's no two ways about it. You have to go. Now, the countries I'm looking at for permanent residency for anyone who's Canadian would be Argentina, Colombia, and Panama. They have the highest value for your money, and they are incredibly safe countries to be in now. Absolutely incredibly safe countries to be in. I know, I live downtown Panama City. I live in what some Panamanians call the slum, but it's pretty good. It's got the cheapest groceries in the country. It has awesome people. There's dancing on the streets. There are parties on the streets here. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, you just join a party. Someone will cook for you. Women will dance with you. It's a good time. On top of that, we have 35-cent subway rides, 25-cent bus rides. I take $3 Uber rides all over the city. I didn't bother buying a car when I got down. What's the point? I live in one incredibly walkable city. Everything that I need is within 2 kilometers of my front door. And 2 kilometers, for those of you out there who don't know, is a 16-minute walk. If you keep a good pace, that's all that it is. Coming full circle on what I'm saying. With the Canada Revenue Agency trying to shut down farms, and with farms being purchased and torched for the purposes of artificially inflating food supply, it's also artificially inflating all of your properties as well. So if you do want to leave Canada, if you want to get out, and you can't find someone to buy your house from you, if your house is worth about $1.8 million today in 2024, probably back in 1980, it was worth about 160. That is how the artificial pricing has happened in Canada. You're not going to find a buyer for that. Let's be honest here. So what you can do is contact me, and we can get you up to 80% of the value of the house in cold hard cash. It's called a home equity loan. And you can grab that home equity loan and buy property in another country. You could buy 3 or 4 properties here in Panama and rent them out under Airbnb. I can tell you something about Panama. This new government down here, they are expanding the country like you wouldn't believe. It's going to be a G20 country in 10 years. It's going to be I'm going to repeat that, a G20 country in 10 years. The banks here are completely clean and safe. Move your money here to Panama. It is safe. Don't liquidate property. If you can avoid liquidating, great. Let's say we get you an 80% line of credit against your house. We can buy a property or several for you here in Panama. With the money that you're making on the Panamanian properties, that's going to, of course, be in US dollars. You can use the Airbnb funds to pay off the mortgage back in Canada if you choose to do so. I had a client who it was almost $1.8 million. It was very, very close to it. We got him 80% of the value of his home. And he just said, I'm walking away. That's it. He's walking away. He decided to move with family in Grenada, took his money with him. And that ended up being the better part of just about 1.2 million Canadian, which is about 820 US roughly. And he is doing very well. He's very happy. He is investing in the crypto market and in the properties market. And he's decided not to go back to Canada. So that house, to which he's making no payments on, will just go up for grabs. And that's his choice. I'm not saying that you should just abandon a property, but he decided he didn't want to pay the bill on that. He decided that what he got for his house was enough for him to retire and be happy. That's not even a recommendation that I made. I just helped him do it. But that is another option that you have. There are a couple of clients of mine down here in Panama that if you wanted to purchase a property fast, you could actually run your Visa card. Just zip your Visa, Amex, or MasterCard and buy a property. Buy a condo. And I mean it, in just that day. What I would do, because I'm here in Panama City, is I would be sitting down with the lawyer. I would be on the Zoom call with you, and the lawyer would be filling everything out. I would be acting as your agent. Your lawyer is acting as your lawyer. And between the two of us, we would have the deed done. You send the credit card payment, and congratulations, you own a condo. It's what they refer to as the concrete bank account. So when you're buying a property anywhere in the world, the value of the property, unless you get swindled, is going to still be there. And of course, higher in the future. Everything's going up all around the world. So when you buy property, it's very difficult to lose unless you do end up buying something where you didn't do your due diligence. It is possible to buy swampland that can't be drained. It is possible to accidentally buy land that had former gas tanks underneath it. That is possible. This has happened in Canada a number of times. But if you do your due diligence, then it's going to be done properly for you. So why would we not want to be moving our money out of Canada? Also, let's go back a couple of years. The truckers' convoy in Ottawa, which I salute them for, which did get your rights back, Canada, by the way, and every other country around the world followed suit to get their rights back, by the way. The truckers' convoy had the unfortunate side effect of upsetting a very weak man. Justin Trudeau is not even a man. He's a very weak individual, realized he was wrong and that everyone was going to be pointing it out, and that the protests in Ottawa, the capital city of Canada, were going to get bigger. So he ordered the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to start making a whole bunch of arrests and filing false charges all over the country, which they did. And also demanded that the banks shut down people's bank accounts, which the banks could not wait to do. Then the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, who has a very severe cocaine problem, look at the way she twitches all the time. That's when she announces that without a court order and without cause and for no reason whatsoever, when we tell the bank to shut down your account, they will. And they're doing it now. So in Canada, if you object, which of course I do heavily, to the radical LGBT movements out there, your banks find out about this by looking at your social media profiles, which they do for some reason. They shut you down. It's called debanking. They are shutting down Canadians' bank accounts who disagree immensely with the LGBTQ out there. Debanking is not a good scene at all. There is some hope. I can help Canadians get into bank accounts in the United States, here in Panama, and also into what you call provincially chartered banks out in Alberta. We can do that. Provincially chartered banks are definitely better now than federally chartered banks in Canada. They're safer, but they're still in Canada. So at some particular point, I'm sure that Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party is going to make a play for your bank account. If you move your money to Panama, it's safe. If you move your money into the United States and you shh about it, you don't tell anyone you've done it, your money is safe. Prime example, I can help you do this. If you open up a numbered corporation or even a named LLC corporation in the United States. The two states that I recommend the most are Wyoming and Delaware because they both have frontier law. Then what we do is get you an application done for an EIN and an ITIN number. They call it the ITIN. So we get the ITIN and the EIN number. Now, according to the IRS, you can do business in the United States. And as soon as you have those two numbers, you can get a bank account in the USA. Now, right, I see the comment here, the banks in the USA are not to be trusted. But as a Canadian citizen, it's still safer to make sure the vast majority of your money is outside of Canada. It's better to move it around. Where should you put it? Some in the USA with a good bank, and some here in Panama where the banks are fantastic. Some in property if you can do it. If you know that you've got a great place to hide your gold and silver, then you want to buy some gold and some silver, but you want to make sure that it's 99.9% pure. And you don't want to tell anybody you have it. You just keep your mouth closed on that because you know what's going to happen, right? The IRS and the CRA both, and actually the ATO in Australia too, they will actually quiz you. They will say, do you have any gold and silver? And everybody thinks that they're obligated to answer these questions. You're not. No, you don't have gold and silver. Keep it shut. Shh, quiet. And then part of your portfolio should also have Bitcoin within it. And I will be lecturing on Bitcoin starting in October. We have a Bitcoin program we're starting up here, especially here in Panama, because Panama is a little bit behind on Bitcoin, but they're starting to take it now. We can buy houses here in Panama with Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP. We can do all three. I would prefer Bitcoin, of course, but we can get that done for you here. Canadian banks are not respected anywhere in the world now. I've just had an unbelievable number of meetings with the banks here in Panama City. And the best part about being in Panama City is there are 52 banks collectively within a square kilometer of each other. Just you could walk to all of them within 2 days and actually go and like walk inside and talk to them. Canadian banks are not respected anywhere in Latin America or South America because the Canadian SWIFT code is typically only good enough to get money into the United States. They won't let you buy crypto and they won't let you transfer anymore into international bank accounts you have elsewhere. If you have a bank that will do that, then you are very lucky. Typically, it'll get done if you've had a relationship with that particular branch for a while, but that's not even the case anymore because the banks no longer want managers to have good relationships with people. So managers are being moved all over the country now. You'll notice that bank managers, they're not there anymore. They're there for a very short time and they move on. Why? Canadian banks are filling up their banks with non-English speaking, in many cases, illegal immigrants so that we can't understand them, they can't understand us, and that they are going to continue to be robots and do what the bank says and not in any way give the customer any leeway at all. And you have to have leeway in banking or you cannot bank. So, Canada, it is time to move your money out of Canada. Oh, and Robert, if your money's in British Columbia, that's the worst place it can be. The government's crazy there. The provincial government, they are insane. And the people that run the banks out there are crazier than the government. British Columbia in Canada is equally as bad as Seattle and Portland in the United States. The whole province is just wackadoo right now within the government and within the banking system. Dangerous place to hold anything. Everyone I know who has assets in British Columbia are selling them and leaving the country. It's just not a good idea. So a couple quick questions here. What about Switzerland? Well, Switzerland is great from the standpoint of you would always have to have a Swiss court order in Switzerland to be able to have someone look at your bank account. But let's say you did get accused of an international crime. They're not going to stick their necks out for you. Of course, we, the little people, we're not committing crimes. We're just looking for a place to put our money. But it's Europe. It's not as easy to do banking out in Switzerland as it would be here in Panama. The other thing to factor in also, the reason I love Panama so much, and of course, Colombia and Argentina, is the time difference. I'm in the same time zones as North America. Yeah, I know that Canada's got 6 time zones. Wow. But it doesn't matter where I am. in Latin America or South America, I will be in one of those time zones. So it's not like I have to do my banking at, let's say, 5 p.m. to catch the guy in Toronto at 9 a.m. I don't have to play those silly games with time zones. I don't like doing that, by the way. And the other thing also is Philippines and Thailand and places like that. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I just don't want to be 12 hours ahead. I don't want to be doing my banking at 9 p.m. to match up with the guy at 9 a.m. I don't want to do that. I want to be in the North American time zone for now anyway, because all of my clients are in Canada and the United States. How has the banking changed since Noriega? There is no Noriega influence in Panama at all. He's a distant and bad memory. Panamanians don't even like talking about the guy. Right? They just don't. So don't worry about that. The banking system in Panama is just like Europe. Better. If I had 200 grand, what would I do with it in Canadian? Well, I mean, Hammer, that's not enough to retire pretty much anywhere except for Colombia that I could really think of. If you have a way to make money, then if you brought $200,000 Canadian to Panama, you'd be able to find a cheap place to rent for $500-600 a month. And like I told you about my food bill, maybe tops 125 a month. And that's when I get a little bit nibbly and buy potato chips, which I shouldn't do. The Lay's are kind of pricey here because they're imported. The local chips here are 50 cents. And some of them are actually not bad. But getting back to the point is, if you've got an income and you're bringing 200K US with you to Panama, you'll be fine. You'll have a very comfortable time for 5 years, but you've got to be able to replenish that somehow. Alrighty. Just checking out your questions here, everybody. What about the Barbados, Randy? Well, the Barbados, they have a new president, and I'm not on the fence with this person. I'm actually a little worried about her. I forget her name, but she came right out. She's a typical big mouth. All right. She's a Caribbean black woman who thinks that being loud is going to command more respect. And I'm not a fan of that particular type of behavior. When a world leader comes out and screams and yells at the top of their lungs, that's what children do. So she behaves like that a lot. And she did say that she'll be shutting down all crypto scams in her country. So if you pull a crypto scam in the Barbados, you'll do a lot of jail time. But at the same time, she is also shutting down the crypto trade in her country. So I wouldn't go to Barbados based on that. She's not the best for the country currently. And it's expensive. If you have a yacht, you know, the yacht fees, like just the docking fees are 30 grand US a year. And you've got to move your yacht out of the Barbados during hurricane season. Why? Because your insurance company is not going to cover your insurance or your yacht during that time. So, you know where you got to bring your yacht? To Panama. Why? There's no hurricanes in Panama. And I am looking for investors now to build a marina. I've got a sweet piece of land now in the north part of the country. I want to build a marina. I would like to have 200 spots for yachts to be here in Panama during hurricane season. We could probably make about $8,000 off of each one for that season easily. So who's in? Who wants to be rich? You want to be rich? Come see me here in Panama. Let's make some money. This country is unbelievable. If you're in business, how many corporate numbers do you think you should have? All right, Kent, it's a great question. If you're a property holder, house, condominium, whatever it might be, a numbered corporation, you want to have as the owner of the property, you are going to be the director and or the shareholder. Or you could have multiple shareholders, children, wives, whomever. Girlfriends, I don't recommend. But if you have collector cars, and let's say it's something good, maybe a 72 Barracuda that's been appraised at 60 grand, you want to put that into a numbered corporation too. You want the corporation to hold anything of intrinsic value. If you have gold and silver, just shut up about it. Like, I wouldn't put that into a corporation. I would just shut up about it. Hide it well. If you're in business, one corporation does your business. You can have two corporations to do business because one corporation can always bill the other one, and you can always transfer money back and forth so that both corporations lose at the end of the year. But always, always, always do not own your personal property. Do not own your home. Don't own but control them. Just don't own them. But I have a corporation in Ontario. I've got another corporation in Ontario and a corporation in British Columbia, because each one serves a different purpose and works with a different type of clientele. How about Bali? I've heard a lot of good things about Bali, but at the same time, Bali is unfortunately subject to a lot of the Islamic attacks that are going on in that region of the world. I haven't been. I've not stepped foot inside of it, and I have no contacts that are in Bali right now to be able to do a live broadcast. So I have to reserve judgment until I go or until I have a solid contact that can guide me. How do you move money from Canada if they aren't slow? Okay, well, they are allowed. You can move money out of Canada. Here's an easy one. Open up an American corporate bank account, go to your bank in Canada, have them convert your money to American currency, get a bank draft, which is also called a cashier's check, written to you in US funds, fly, keep your mouth shut about having a check in your bag, and deposit it. There you go. It's that easy. I got asked, and appropriately so, about exit tax. All right. We got to talk about exit tax. I'm just going to address some of your questions here, and then I'm going to move on to exit tax. Kamala Harris will destroy the United States. The Democrats have already done it. Yeah, I know that Trump's ahead in the polls. Trump's more popular than he's ever been. The Democrats are less popular than they've ever been, but here's hoping that they can't pull off another scam, because that was a stolen election, no matter what anyone says. Hey, Ninja Scott, how you doing, brother? How is the war in Israel going to end? That is one that I'm going to reserve for my show, my political show next week. I'd rather not talk about war on the Real Estate Money Show, but thanks, Perry, and good to see you. Thanks for being here. All right, exit tax. The Canadian government has been spreading rumors to the media. They're not rumors. It's just instructions. What they're doing is telling the Canadian media to lie to the Canadian people that there is a big exit tax now. There isn't. And there are big capital gains taxes that you have to pay. You don't. The problem is not the taxes. The problem is the accountants and the tax lawyers out there won't tell you the truth